Beta Upsilon Chi presents Man to Men, the premier audio journal for men who live faithfully and lead courageously. I'm Jared Musgrove with you for another Lead Courageously conversation, and today we welcome Joel Klatt. Joel is the lead college football analyst for Fox Sports, a record-setting University of Colorado quarterback, and so much more. He joins us today. Joel Klatt, welcome to Man to Men.
Yeah, it's good to be here. How are you today, Jared?
It's great. All the better for hanging out with you.
I love it. Well, I'm looking forward to this.
I've been looking forward too because you've got a unique journey, Joel. I mean, from minor league baseball to quarterbacking as a Colorado Buff, and then honestly, from what I can find, playing about every sport imaginable in high school. Now a national sports broadcaster. Man, what are some of the lessons that you've taken so far from your biography?
There are so many. There are so many ways to answer that question. I think that the biggest lesson that I've learned over the years is that, you know, like the Lord's provision will ultimately reign. And there are times when I wanted things really badly and they didn't work out. And in hindsight, at 43 years old with 3 boys and a lovely wife and an incredibly blessed with my career, I look back and I'm like, man, he protected me in so many ways and in so many different times. So, you know, I don't know if that's the answer you were maybe expecting, but
no,
I think that's
helpful.
the biggest lesson.
Sounds like gratitude.
Yeah, and again, you know, this idea that through experience, I've learned that now more than ever, it's like, hey, you know, I can want things all the time, but present your request to the Lord, and then He can make your path straight. And His plan was so much better than mine, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's the biggest lesson. And then there's a couple of more. That's obviously on the spiritual side. From the personal side, I always was able to succeed, obviously through the blessing of the Lord. But then secondly, I feel like He honored a walk-on mindset. And when I ever felt entitled throughout any of that whole career, whether it was athletically or during broadcast or as a father or any husband in particular, you know, when I start feeling entitled, that's when I start going off the rails. And when I show up with a walk-on mentality and I show up thinking to myself, like, how can I make this space better? How can I better myself? And don't think anything other than that, then things tend to work out, you know? So those are the 2 biggest lessons, is that I serve in an incredible Savior, and He has been paving my way throughout. And I look back at that and see His provision. And then from my standpoint, showing up with a walk-on mentality, not being entitled, has been, I think, the greatest tool that I've been able to have at times during the course of my career.
Yeah. Man, I love that. A walk-on mentality. That's good. That's good. And another thing I love about you, Joel, is how courageous you are in sharing your faith. When did that faith journey with Christ begin for you? Well,
from a very young age. I'm not one of those guys, you know, have you ever heard of like testimony envy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so
I'm a Southern Baptist kid. I think we invented that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And by the way, I grew up in a Baptist church, and now it wasn't Southern. It was in Arvada, Colorado. But
yeah,
I went to church every Sunday that I can remember. You know, I have 2 amazing parents that love the Lord, and my brother and my 2 sisters love the Lord. I came to know Christ early. I can remember asking my dad when I was 6 years old. We were driving in his old car back from, he was a high school football coach and teacher, and we were driving back from the high school home. And I said, like, Dad, I want to accept Jesus, you know. So I've been saved as long as I can remember. But that's very different than walking and really experiencing relationship with Jesus. I think those are at least for me, those are 2 different things. As you can probably relate to growing up Southern Baptist, through no fault of their own, you know, my family started portraying more of the facade. It's like, this is how we had to act in order to portray this, you know, facade or image of what a Christian family should look like. I very much learned that, how to be basically 2 different people, who I was on Sunday and then who I was the rest of the week. And it never overlapped. I would say I went through high school that way, started really struggling with my identity wrapped up in sports, started struggling with my identity wrapped up with girls, and then eventually alcohol. Went to play minor league baseball partly because I wanted that badge of honor. I was drafted. I'm going to sign, and my identity was totally wrapped up in that. Started struggling with alcohol severely. And it wasn't until, I started really failing as an athlete during minor league baseball that I started to think to myself, like, hold on, like something's not right. All this success that I've enjoyed has never fulfilled. All this, partying in excess has never fulfilled. And so I went back to college and walked on at Colorado, and I started meeting with a guy named Bill Stevens, going to a ministry. I met this incredibly cute and beautiful woman that eventually became my wife, named Sarah. And that's when he and I started meeting, Bill and I, and we started exploring, like, what does it mean for me to love and experience Jesus? And so, my college years were big in that regard. Now, it didn't overtake my life, candidly, until maybe COVID.
Okay.
Again, I've gone to church. I love the Lord, and I have for my entire life. But I began a friendship and a relationship, and I began submitting daily to Jesus March 11th, 2020. And it wasn't anything specific other than the world shut down. And all of a sudden I had time to sit there and just read the word and be connected to the vine. And I had never really been able to do that. And so, Jared, the experience of developing fruit in your life through no effort of your own, but only because you're connected to the vine, that experience has really transformed my life. And I would say that that's been actually a more recent phenomenon in 2020.
Man, thank you for sharing that, Joel. It strikes me that at the time we're recording this, we're just a few days, about 5 years later from that day where you had that experience. I'm really grateful for the Lord's providence and just activity in your life, bro. I really am.
There's no doubt. And I will tell you this, that like the boldness I never thought I would have has showed up in abundance.
I see it.
Because to me, I don't have to step out. This is not a risk. This is me talking about my Savior and the one whom I love and loves me. And I love him because he loved me first. And so to me, it just it's really transformed my perspective on life. And I wish it would have happened sooner. And hopefully, through testimony and opportunities like this, maybe there's a 22 or 23-year-old that can have that epiphany and that moment sooner than I did.
Yeah. When you are speaking to a lot of those young men. We've got listeners from, college age up to recent retirees,
Yeah.
And it strikes me to ask you if you could tell that young athlete, Joel Klatt, or some of the young athletes or young men that are listening here about Jesus, identity, trying to excel at the same time, what would you share with them? Would it be more of that walk-on mentality?
Yes, but I would probably first start hammering away at identity. I would say that you can't earn God's favor and you can't earn your happiness. Like those two things are candidly, not really in our control. God gives graciously his favor. It goes back to Abraham. And, there is a very distinct pattern of the way that God works. And God's covenant with Abraham is a one-sided covenant. Abraham was asleep.
Yeah.
Covenant outside of that has always been a two-sided agreement, a covenant. And back in ancient times, the two entering covenant would basically sacrifice an animal and take all the pieces and spread the blood around, and then they would walk through the pieces of the animal. Those two people would. And it was a symbolic ceremony, basically meaning if I break this covenant, may what happened to these animals happen to me. That's what the covenant was. But all of a sudden, God makes this covenant with Abraham, and the covenant was sealed when Abraham was asleep. And that is an incredibly important piece. And I think that maybe we pass over that because it's an Old Testament story, but
yeah,
God gives graciously. And then the trust in the Lord and Abraham's faith was then credited to him as righteousness. And that then again happens to us later. It is a one-sided covenant. When Jesus went to the cross, there's nothing I can do to earn my own salvation. Nothing. He went there for me. He clothes me with his robe. He gives me the ring to take the prodigal son story. He runs towards me and clothes me, and it's everything that he did. And my job is then to accept his love, trust in him, and have faith in him. And then that faith is credited to me as righteousness, just as Abraham's was in the Old Testament. Now, I go through all of that because to me, that's identity. I would tell that young athlete, like, hey man, like, great, hit a home run, throw a touchdown pass. That's not going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy, what's going to fulfill you and give you purpose is your relationship with the Lord, your faith in him, accepting the free gift that he so graciously gives. That's what ultimately fulfills us. In the New Testament, it's interesting, at least to me, there's very few promises that Jesus makes us, really.
Yeah.
And in particular, in terms of what he's going to give us, right? Obviously, he gives us salvation. He clothes us in his blood so that we can then approach the Father. But he does say, I give you my peace and I give you my joy. And I would just tell that young athlete, like, hey, no matter what you do, no matter what you're trying to do or trying to achieve, true peace, true fulfillment, and true joy comes through your relationship with Christ.
Oh, amen. Man, yeah, that's pure gospel. That's good, man. You better be careful. We'll add pastor to that bio pretty soon. You keep going like this. It's good stuff, man. It's good. Joel, one thing that I've just noticed, kind of, watching you over the years and everything, even just back in college, I think we were somewhat contemporaries. You were at Colorado. I was at Oklahoma, though I wasn't on the football team. You have been through your careers in some pretty high pressure environments. I'm thinking baseball, college football, broadcasting. How does the Lord ground you when you're in some of these very public filmed arenas?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Which is why it says in the word that the peace of the Lord, which transcends all understanding.
That's it.
I don't understand. I will tell you, if I'm not connected and if I'm feeling like I have to do something, that's when I get nervous. But when I take the national anthem time when we're in a commercial break and I just pray, man, I just feel like the comfort of the Lord right there. I enjoy those environments. And I also, I'm a huge believer now that, the things that I'm good at, he made in me and he delights in that. I think sometimes, and again, you said you were Southern Baptist. I grew up, kind of Baptist I think that there's a real opportunity for Christians sometimes to feel guilty about things that they're good at, or almost like I don't want to be too good at that because I want to favor the Lord first or foremost or whatever.
Humility many times.
Yeah, there's a false humility, and yet like the Lord gave you those things and he gave you those talents, and in the parable of the talents, like he wants you to multiply them, because if you're giving the credit to him and if you're showing people his light, he's giving you platforms which ultimately reflect upon him and not you, and so that to me, I delight in those opportunities now. Man, I can't wait for huge games and big games, so that I can do what he allows me to do. That's, and I think when you have that perspective, to be honest with you, I don't think like the pressure of it really shows up that much.
Man, no, I can just feel the peace radiate through you as you talk about that. I can see you in those moments, and knowing that you pray during those times, kind of a reminder to pray for you and the rest of the guys that are on the field that are following Christ during those moments.
Yeah.
That's a good reminder, man.
And those guys are humans. And I think that's what helps me as being a former player is like nobody down there is trying to fail. They are all doing everything they possibly can to succeed. And that perspective helps, I think, as well.
That's so good. Well, so has your faith ever informed how you tell a story or how you cover maybe a controversy in our sport?
I do my best to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and so to me, I think the way that my faith really interjects into my actual analysis or what I say on the air is that I want to lift people up for the most part and not tear them down. So it's not anything overly specific. It's a good question. Sometimes what I like to do now is more off camera. There are players now, and this has been really exciting to see. A lot of players are putting their faith forward. A lot of us are in the public, mind, but players are doing that. And so I try to take the opportunity to go and seek them out in private and affirm them in what they're doing and tell them what a great job they're doing and, to keep it up. So I think that's how my faith ultimately like manifests more in my job.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you about it. I'm glad you went there because it does seem that increasingly more athletes, college and pro, are naming Christ as their inspiration and their strength. Can you share, and you kind of started, but what are you seeing in this emerging pattern? We saw it a lot in this last college football season.
I think it's bigger than football. I think it's bigger than sports. I think that we as a culture and as a people, I think humans were under attack. The falsehoods and the lies and the fallacies that have perpetuated around us for a long time, I think have brought out this insatiable appetite for the truth. Young men in particular, which obviously a lot of you are listening to this, and there is a reason why there is what I would call almost like a revival, although that has a kind of an interesting connotation to it. There is a reason why young men are seeking out and attaching themselves to Jesus. And that's because Jesus is truth. He is the light. And that's what I think is happening, and college campuses can be a dark place.
Yeah.
The public eye can be a dark place. Social media can be a dark place. What we've lived through culturally can be dark at times. And while so many people are trying to push falsehoods and untruths on us and make us believe them as truths, I think that the actual truth and the light is what people are seeking and looking at, and it's breaking through. And so that would be my thing. I don't think it's specific to sports, to be honest with you. I think athletes just have the platform to make it known. But I think, Jared, you probably see this within the fraternity. It's young men are flocking towards the truth.
Yes.
And rightly so.
Yes. Amen. Oh, that's good, man. That's great to get that perspective. I love that. If you've got a little more time, Joel, I'd love to do a segment of the show with you we call Everywhere, Every Day. That's a more personal conversation with our guests on just how they live and move and be. Man, just to start at the beginning.
Well, I don't move as well as I used to, but
I don't know. Our mutual friend tells me you're still pretty strong athlete. So,
man.
You do have a lot of demands on your time. So just to start at the beginning, what time do you have to get up most mornings, and what's the first things that you've got to do?
I set my alarm at 5:50 every morning, and the reason is that my boys have their alarm set at 6:25, And I want to make it a point. I don't want to be in the gym when they wake up. I don't want to be in the office when they wake up. I don't want to be in my bed when they wake up. I want them to walk down the stairs and see me reading my Bible.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wake up at 5:55. I go downstairs, I get a cup of coffee, and I can't wait to hear their door open. And I just journal and I read the word. I don't read it in private in my office. I don't go anywhere. I don't go to a coffee shop. I read the word at the kitchen table every single morning. That's my spot. So that's what time I get up, and that's the reason.
No, that's good. I love that. I have a feeling they're going to remember that for a long time.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. And I've never said that to them. They don't, I just want them when they're older to think to themselves like, man, Dad was always just reading the word. He was with Jesus every morning.
Love it. Love it. What do you enjoy about those three young men, kind of your own little fraternity you've got in your house? What are you enjoying about them right now?
So much. They're so different, each of them, and I can see God's countenance on each of them. And he has made them so unique. My oldest son, Henry, is 13. He's in 7th grade, which boggles my mind. The fact I have a teenager is staggering.
You and me
to
both, brother. I've got one about to start driving next year.
Oh my goodness. Ready. Yeah, I'm certainly not ready for that, but I know that it's coming. Childhood, being a father is a bit like being on the tracks of a freight train. It's coming, whether you're ready or not, and so you better get yourself ready because those years and those moments are coming, and they're not going to wait for you. Okay, so Henry, he's really intelligent, and I'm telling you, Jared, this kid has been touched by the Lord. The Holy Spirit dwells in him and overflows out of him. Wants to be a pastor. He reads the word. I read the word every single morning. He knows it, man. He can quote scripture. Loves to volunteer at church. He does the tech team for his junior high ministry in our church. Henry's incredible. And so he and I actually, what I love to do with Henry is we like to play golf together and we like to listen to podcasts together.
Love it.
So those are our two things. Sam is very different than that. Now, Sam is competitive. He's got a little bit of the needle. Like he teases me about my hair thinning and things like that. He's like, yeah, your hair looks pretty good today. And then it'll be like, for thinning, and so Sam and I have an incredible time because we like to do a lot of things together, go to movies together, watch movies at home together. He likes to play sports, so we'll go and we'll practice his sports, whether it's lacrosse or he'll go golf, we'll throw the football. And then he loves to talk about sports. He will just, Dad, tell me about this team. Tell me about that player. And so we'll just sit there. And then my youngest son, Theo, is 8. Jared, this kid is all mullet. He is all baseball swag. Like he's got all the drip going and like all he wants to do is play. He is the youngest as the youngest as the youngest. So if I can be throwing him a ball, he wants to do it. And he's always like, Dad, make me dive. So that's what's going on in the Klatt household right now.
No, that's so good. I was going to ask you because your job, especially at least part of the year, takes you to a lot of places. We've got men right now that are listening that travel quite a bit for their career, and we've got some men listening that are going to have to learn that skill. How do you do that, man? And how do you care for your family, your body, and your soul when you're on the road as much as you are?
Well, the soul part is easy, and it doesn't matter where I wake up. That day belongs to the Lord. So the first thing I do every day is I'm on my knees. I'm in the Word. That's just so. And I think that's just an incredible habit to develop. And again, I don't go to the gym first because I think my soul is more important than my body, right? Why would I work my body out and get that right before I got right spiritually?
Yeah.
So that's just how I think about it. And that doesn't take any talent. It takes discipline, and it doesn't take any location either. So I do that every morning. As far as the piece of the family piece, I think it's about intentionality and understanding presence. It took me a long time to learn this. When I'm with my family, I'm with my family. When I'm working, I'm working. Not letting those bleed over, I think, is vital. And as men, and in this culture, I think it's pervasive that everyone expects it to bleed over. In particular, work into your family life, because we're always on these things, right? And we're always reachable. So I put boundaries in place. So Jared, for instance, I have no social media on my phone. Not one social media. So I'm not going to just like sit there on the phone and scroll around when I'm with my family. That helps a lot. If you find yourself sitting there and you're on your phone and your kids are seeing you stare at your phone, I just think that that's probably a bad precedent, and you're not being present with your kids. So again, it comes to presence. When I'm working, I'm working. When I'm at home, I'm at home. And then when it comes to physically, I also try to work out, 5 to 6 days a week, do something. I'm a big believer in that. I want to stay healthy for my kids. I want to set that example for them. And I just feel better. I just feel better overall when I can get in the gym and do that. So every single time I travel, I pack enough workout clothes to work out every single day. So every single day that I work up in a hotel, even Saturdays, by the way, I do this even on Saturdays. I'm in the Word for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I'm in the gym for at least 30 minutes. And that's even before these noon games. And we have to leave pretty early. So a lot of times, like if I'm in Ohio, I'm waking up at 4:45 or 5 Ohio time on a Saturday just to make sure that I'm getting through all of those things.
Yeah. No, that's helpful, man. No life hack to self-discipline, is there?
No.
Yeah. No, that's good. Joel, a mutual friend of ours shared that you hold the record for throwing a golf club at 60 yards. Care to comment? That's a different kind of dime time.
I used to have a bit of an anger issue tied to my identity, right? So
Sure.
I thought, like, if I wasn't a good golfer, then, what am I doing? And I have a decent arm. And so, yes, our mutual friend, Chuck, he has seen me. Now, this is years ago. This is over a decade ago.
Yep.
I can't remember what club it was. I want to say it was like some sort of wedge. It was like a sand wedge. And I like chunked it. And I just turned. And at the time, I mean, I could, I'm in decent shape. I turned and threw it. And I think it went like 65 or 70 yards.
Yeah.
And all he could say, he wasn't like, hey, calm down. He was like, oh my gosh, you threw that so far, So that was fun. He's seen me do a few things. I've snapped a club over my knee. I don't do that anymore, by the way.
I hear you.
But yes, oh man, that's funny.
Well, man, that might be Chuck's favorite sports moment, but what are some of your favorite sports moments that you've gotten to cover?
Well, there's the ones that I loved as a kid, Jared, growing up. I still remember John Elway's drive against the Browns in the AFC Championship to go to his first Super Bowl.
That's good.
I remember Ernest Biner's fumble the next year to put the Broncos in the Super Bowl. I remember John Elway's helicopter to win the first Super Bowl for the Broncos. I was a huge Bronco fan growing up in the
picking
Denver
up on
area.
that. Yep.
So those were big. I remember the first time that I got to go to a Major League Baseball game after the Rockies had come to town, and we got to see the Atlanta Braves in 1993. And so this is like the Sid Bream, Terry Pendleton, like that Braves team that was so good. I'll always remember that. But then a real huge one from my childhood, the last one, and then I'll get to some of the ones that I've covered. In 98, the All-Star game came to Coors Field in the Denver area. And my buddy, my best friend in the world, his family had tickets. And his sister, God bless her, she gave me her ticket to go to the All-Star game because they had just family seats. And so I went with my best friend and his parents and caught a foul ball at the All-Star game in 1998. Roger Clemens was pitching. Craig Biggio was hitting. And I caught a foul ball, and there were grown men trying to like jump on me, and I was hugging, I was hugging it tight.
Way to
I'll
go.
always remember that.
Protect the rock. Yeah.
And then from moments that I've covered in college football, I remember some of those Red River games vividly. In particular, the one where Gus what was his name? He called him Dicker the kicker. Cameron Dicker.
Okay. Yeah.
Made a field goal for Texas to win, and he goes, Dicker the kicker.
Yeah.
I remember that one really well. And then some of those Ohio State Michigan games, man. I mean, they are, like those are big. You can feel it. There's 20 million people watching. In particular, in some of those years that we've had over the last 3 or 4, those have been big ones.
Yeah, the big rivalries. Yeah, crazy stuff happens in those. That's fun, man. Well, I was going to ask you, Joel, kind of going back to, personally, with the travel, you talked some about how you care for yourself spiritually and your family. What does church look like and how you do your job? Yeah,
so I'm really fortunate. Our game's at noon, big noon Saturday.
Yep.
And it's, I think some people really love it. Some people don't, college football fans.
So
count me in as one of the guys that loves it. And the reason is that I get home on Saturday night, which means I'm at church every single Sunday morning, even in the fall. And what a blessing that's been. I don't know if I'll always do the noon game, but I can tell you this, for the last few years, and in a really important time in my son's lives, we've gotten to get up on Sunday morning. We get donuts every Sunday. It doesn't matter what time I get home. I'm going to get up and we're going to go to 10 a.m. church. And that's been invaluable. And I'll tell you what, it has provided an amazing opportunity and testimony to some people that see me in church, because they're like, dang, like you're here every Saturday. And I'm like, yeah, I won't, or excuse me, every Sunday.
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, I won't miss it. Why would I miss a Sunday? And so that's been fun. But that's our church rhythm. And
Good.
I'm really fortunate that I'm able to get home on Saturday night.
Yeah. I love that, man. Love setting that example. What does friendship look like for you these days at this time in your life?
That's a tough one, actually.
It is for most of us.
It is for most of us. I think that if we're all honest with ourselves, we're not relational. I don't think men are very relational. That doesn't mean all of us. There are some that are relational and they do it really well. For the most part, from a generalization standpoint, I don't think we do relationship really well. I certainly didn't for a long time. And that's really detrimental and it's dangerous. I will just say that. If you think that it's normal and it's no big deal, then you're setting yourself up, because Satan lurks in the darkness. He lurks in the darkness. And the more that you are on your own or with no accountability relationship and no relationship that someone can actually ask you real questions, that's a dangerous spot to be in as a man, regardless of your age. You can be retired, you can be 40, you can be 30, you can be in college. Forming relationships is really important. I'm not great at it, but we do have a life group here where we live, and I'm just vulnerable with them and try to be vulnerable with them. And we have a great group, and that's really helped. And we check in on each other. And for the most part, those 6 or 7 guys, it's 7 of us, 7 guys, have been life-giving to me. But again, like, I would make a point out there, if I were you, to find the relationships that can press in the areas that you hold on to, because all of us have strongholds, and you need someone to ask you about them. Whether you're going to be honest or not is up to you, okay?
Yep.
But to have a relationship where someone can be like, hey, man, how you doing? How you doing online? How are you doing with alcohol? How are you doing with your girlfriend? How are you doing with your wife? And I think that's important.
It is. It is. I think most of us want to be asked, really, because we know someone cares, but it could be a scary place. Yeah. Man, as you're spending time in the Bible, and I love where you just went off and became Joel Klatt Bible scholar earlier. I love that. You're spending time in the Word, but when you get time to get into the Bible and you're not on the reading plan, you can just kind of off-road, is what I call it. What are the Bible passages or the Bible people that you find yourself returning to most?
Well, to me, it's easily Paul. I just find Paul so fascinating because of his transformation. And, there's a lot of great people in the Bible and some stories that are incredible. But if you really read through Acts, really read it, what you're going to find is that this man, Saul, was on the council listening to, I believe it was, Stephen, and watched as a group of his fellow Romans and Jews stoned Stephen. He watched that. Yeah. In fact, he probably condoned it and to some extent wanted it to happen. Okay, so that's who he is. And in the matter of chapters, the risen Jesus appears before him, and then he becomes the champion of all champions for the Lord. So that transformation, that sequence from about Acts 4 through about Acts 10, to me is just it's incredible because it gets me out of my comfort zone. It challenges me. I start to think to myself hey, well, where's the evidence of my faith?
Yeah.
Paul, all these people in Acts, they were put on trial. And it was very clear evidence that they followed Jesus and they knew Jesus and they proclaimed Jesus. If all of us had to go on trial and there was a trial and to say are you a follower of Jesus or not? Is there enough evidence to convict us? So that I really love Acts because of that. And then once you roll through Acts, you get this transformation of Paul, and then you start to see the situations that he's surrounded by and tackling, and then you see them show up in his letters to all the different churches. You see the Council of Jerusalem and they're talking about Jews and Gentiles, and you see how that process is going, and then you can tie it into that's why he says it like he does in the letters back to the churches when they're struggling those things. So that's where I go. As you can tell, it gets me a little fired up. I love it. I use the Enduring Word commentary, so I go very slow and really dig into some of those passages. And a lot of what I'm doing now is in Acts.
That's great. No, I can feel my wife because in church, when there's points that I really like, I just kind of become a bobblehead. And so for our YouTube viewers, you're just going to see me bobblehead a lot on this one with Joel because, you're just dropping truth, man. I love it. I can tell it's in you. I can tell he's in you. Just to encourage you.
I appreciate that.
Well, Joel, you've given us many gifts here. I've learned from you. I've been challenged by you just in the time we've spent together. I think some of the brothers listening would say the same thing. Last question. How can we who are listening to you be praying for you in this season?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. I think more than anything, it's continuing to stay the course and all the things that I've talked about here today. I don't think you ever conquer identity because we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. Every single one of us. I'm not doing it perfect. I'm trying really hard, but I have to accept His grace every single day because that's the only, because I'm going to fall short. You're going to fall short. We're all going to fall short. And so that process of removing my identity and placing it in Him, I think is first and foremost. I always would love prayers about that. And then what I touched on with presence, the next few years are going to be an incredibly important time raising these boys into men, and in particular, having a 13-year-old right now. And so having the discipline and the fortitude to be present with him and for my boys, I think is going to be really important.
You got it, man. I think each of us are going to pray for you just as we're listening through this interview right now.
I appreciate you.
When it drops and in the days to come.
I appreciate you giving me the platform, and I would just encourage all of you guys out there. If you're listening to this, you're already winning. You're already seeking out quality things, and I would just encourage you, continue to do that. Fill yourself up, connect to the vine. The more you're connected to the vine, he prunes you, he develops you, and that fruit shows up in your life and it overflows out of you. And it's going to improve every single area of your life.
That's good. Joel Klatt, thanks for joining us today on Man to Man.
You bet. Thank you, Jared. I appreciate it.
Man to Man is powered by Beta Upsilon Chi, commonly referred to as Bucks. Everywhere, every day, Bucks men are raising families, leading in organizations, and strengthening churches to impact our communities for Christ. You can find out more about Beta Upsilon Chi by transliterating our Greek letters and adding a .org. That's byx.org. We are produced, rather well I might add, by the good gentlemen of the Good Podcast Company. For Beta Upsilon Chi, I'm Dr. Jared Musgrove with Man to Man.